Huey? Huey? Jasmine cried, all while shaking Huey to get him to wake up. Huey? She then realized that she could not wake up her crush again because he was now in a deep sleep. But everyone thought Huey had died. Jasmine hugged him close and began to cry. Oh, Huey! Riley sobbed along with her. Robert teared up, but wiped them with his handkerchief. Little baby, he said. Huey wanted me to tell you this. He then looked at him, and then he looked at Jasmine, with tears flowing down her face. Huey said that he likes you very much, he sniffled. You mean as a friend? Jasmine guessed. No, Robert said, placing his hand on her shoulder. I mean he likes you. Likes you. Her eyes flew open wide before she cried so hard. Oh, Huey! She cried. Robert hugged Jasmine to comfort her. I'm so sorry, little baby, he said. She hugged him in return, crying on his shoulder. Riley took it very hard too, because Huey was his brother. Damn it, Huey, he cried. Why did you have to go like this? He placed his head on his brother's chest. Just why? However, he immediately stopped crying and began to hear something in his chest from his chest. The problem was that Robert and Jasmine were crying so hard and loud that they were unable to hear Huey's chest too well. Riley told him, Hey, shut up! Stop crying for a minute. They stopped crying. I'm listening to them. And he tried to place his head on Huey's chest again and began to listen to the beats. He realized that Huey was not dead. While she and Robert were drying their eyes, Jasmine asked, What is it, Riley? I could hear Huey's heart, he said. He lifted up his head to look at the two. It's still beating. They could not nor believe what Riley said. His heart is still beating? Jasmine repeated. Robert realized that Riley was only talking about Ben. That means he then took one of Huey's wrists and checked for a pulse. Miraculously, Huey still had a pulse. His pulse is still there, he declared. Because of the obvious evidence, Jasmine began to feel hopeful. So if Huey still has a pulse and his heart is still beating, she said, that means Huey's not dead. Now, ain't dead, Riley said. Huey is asleep. With that being said, Huey began to snore loudly before letting out a quiet sigh. Realizing that Huey was actually slumbering, everyone let out a huge sigh of relief. Good thing the boy is still breathing, Robert said happily. Now I'm questioning my realization on this, Riley said, covering his ears. How come? Jasmine asked. That's 'cause of Huey's snoring, Riley answered. He didn't snore last night. Understanding what his grandson was saying, Robert checked Huey's throat. There's an apple in piece, he said. What about it? Riley asked. It's stuck in Huey's throat, Robert stated. Could we try and get it out? Jasmine asked. I don't think it's a good idea, Robert said. Why not? She asked. Elizabeth Taylor pulled a Montgomery on Cliff's teeth out of his throat, and he made it out fine, Riley stated. If we try to get the apple out of Huey's throat, then the chances of him breathing are low, Robert answered. So it is best that we leave it as for now. Should we try to get him to the hospital? Jasmine asked. Hospitals know nothing about sleeping spells, little baby, Robert said. Which is why we must take him to a wooded area, so fresh air and he could smell the dirt so he can get into his system. Then we gotta take him to the Woodcrest Forest, Riley said. Exactly, his granddad said. But I need to fight Stinkmeaner. Jasmine added, if we don't save Huey by sunset, he might be asleep forever. In that case, we need to invite our friends to help us get this predicament, Robert said. Let's get to our house. He picked up the sleeping Huey up and carried him to the car with Riley and Jasmine following him. A few minutes later, Jasmine's parents, Tom and Sarah Du Bois, Uncle Ruckus, Ed Winkleiner, Ed Winkleiner III, Gin Rummery, and Cindy McPherson were all in the living room of the Freeman residence. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take a moment to say thank you for coming here today, Robert announced. I call you all here for a very important reason. It is for my grandson, Huey Freeman. Huey was lying on the couch, still snoring loudly with Riley still covering his ears. He came up with the idea to shut Huey up. He nudged his sleeping brother that it caused him to stop snoring. Finally, Riley said under his breath. However, about 5 seconds later, Huey started snoring again. This caused the kid brother to get irritated that he began shaking him. Huey, stop it, snoring, Riley yelled. Shut up! Shut the hell up! Riley, are you trying to kill your brother? Robert asked. But Granddad, Huey's constant snoring is starting to get on my nerves, Riley groaned. I can't stand listening to his obvious sounds. Yeah, better not do anything else to him, or I'll be taking out my belt, Robert warned. I hate the belt, Riley groaned under his breath. Now, as I was saying, Robert continued, my old enemy Colonel Stinkmeaner gave Huey a poisoned apple and poisoned him. But didn't Stinkmeaner die a few months ago? Tom asked. Yes, but he escaped from the world of fire to seek revenge on the Freemans, Jasmine added. Is it true, dear? Sarah asked. It is true, Mom, she responded, and I almost take Stinkmeaner down to avenge Huey. Jasmine, Tom said. He was reluctant to have his little girl go alone and take down a mean spirit, but Roberts placed his hand on his shoulder and said, One of these days, Mr. Du Bois, your little girl can't be depended forever. Tom nodded his head, and he and his wife shared a hug with their daughter. Please be careful, sweetheart, he said, and make sure you don't get hurt, Sarah said. I'll be extremely careful, Mom and Dad, Jasmine reassured her parents. Riley took out Huey's katana, a Japanese sword that he got it from his bedroom, and gave it to Jasmine. You're gonna need this katana, he said. He had a difficult time saying the word katana. Thanks, Huey, Jasmine said, taking it. It'll help you with Stinkmeaner, Riley said. Take one step to his heart and he'll be back in the fire. She nodded her head, remembering and resembling that she understood what he said. She had been practicing martial arts with Huey recently, which is why she had experience with katanas. Everyone, Jasmine said, be sure to keep Huey company. Everyone else nodded. Robert placed his hand on Jasmine's shoulder. We will, little baby, he said. Show Stinkmeaner who's boss. Huey's counting on you. Jasmine became hopeful and headed out of the door with the katana in her hand. As soon as she left, Robert said, in the meantime, we gotta make the environment comfortable for Huey. Mr. Wonkleiner and Uncle Ruckus, you two will find some chairs for the people to sit down. Mr. Unclair and Uncle Ruckus nodded their heads yes. Mr. and Mrs. Du Bois, you two gather some flowers and make a flower bed for Huey to lay down on. Tom and Sarah understood what Robert was talking about. Ed and Rummy, both of you get your crap together and act like guards for Mr. Wenkleiner and Uncle Ruckus. Jin and Rummy groaned. Aw, man. Ed Unglencher nudged his friend in the arm. Cool it, Jin, he said. It's just for one day. Jin Rummy then facepalmed himself. Riley, Cindy, and I will head to the flower bed near the Woodcrest Forest, Robert said, and then find the right kind of flowers that will get Huey to stop snoring, Riley added. His grandfather gave an annoying look and slowly took out his belt, but Riley began to swear and started, find the right kind of flowers that will make Huey breathe and a little better. Robert placed his belt back around his pants and said, All right, people, we have until sunset. Let's move. Everyone went their ways and do their tasks. Meanwhile, Jasmine was running to the hideout to meet Stinkmeaner's spirit. On her way there, she began to think of Huey. That's it, Huey. She thought, I'm going to save you. You've helped me multiple times, but now it's my turn to be your hero. In addition, Jasmine began to wonder wherever she was to kiss him. Traditionally handsome princes were the ones to save a beautiful princess from spells like this, she thought. True, Huey is a handsome and I'm beautiful, but she stopped dead in her tracks when she spotted the dark monsters. Jasmine screamed and started to be afraid. However, she stopped when she remembered a time Huey encouraged her to not show fear. In the flashback, Jasmine was practicing her fighting skills with goblins alongside with Huey. When a horrific goblin popped up, she began to scream and guard herself. By this time, Huey took down the goblin with his katana. You alright, Jasmine? He asked, turning around to see her. I'm alright, Jasmine said. That goblin scared the living crap out of me, though. Feeling some sympathy for the young girl, Huey then comforted her with a hug. It's okay, Jasmine, he said. But remember, you gotta show no fear to your enemies. Fear is their number and one priority, and we'll take it as advantage to stop you. So I wouldn't be afraid of them? Jasmine asked. Not that you don't have the right to be afraid, Huey reassured her, but you shouldn't show them that you're scared. Jasmine nodded and with a look of determination. Okay, she said. I'll show our enemies no fear. That's the spirit, Huey said, patting his friend on the shoulder. Back to the present, Jasmine took that memory to heart and looked at the dark creatures with determination and courage. She took out the katana and slashed at these monsters. One by one, they all disappeared into the air. Jasmine caught her breath for a moment or two before she spoke. I did it, she said. She was proud to take them down without showing fear in the enemy's eyes. She moved on towards the hideout, all while thinking. Just you wait, Huey. As soon as I take Stinkmeaner down, I am sure you'll be very proud of me.